Good morning, Survivor Rites. It is another week, another month, actually, since I've chatted with my friend Steve VanDermyden. One of my favorite days. I always look forward to it. And we have so much to cover, so I just want to very quickly say a couple of housekeeping things. If you missed Bryce Erickson this week, that was awesome. He's going to be on again this next week. And don't forget, this afternoon, the listening prayer on Zoom with Jared Lerwick. So that will be, it's open to anybody. So I've had a few people say, can I invite people? Yes, you can. It's public. So, okay, Steve, we always talk about communication, and we always talk about growth and dynamics of what it takes to move forward. And we are speaking from our own personal experience and also a lot of education and a lot of learning on our parts. And a lot of therapy on my part. That's all I'm going to say.
Mine.
Yes.
It takes all the help we can get.
It does. But, you know, coming at this, like, I just want to start with a lot of compassion for people who aren't where we are yet. But I want them to also come into this conversation that we're having today with hope, that they will get there, because it's so important and life-changing. I mean, it really, truly is so life-changing to find your voice, whether you're a man or a woman doing it authentically and not just out of hot air. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. But let's start very quickly with defining codependence, if you would, because we're going to talk a lot about codependence today. I want to hear what your definition is, because I know what mine is when we talk about it.
All right, we broke up a little bit on the sound, but
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. On codependency, codependency is all about the need to be responsible for other people's emotions. And systemically, that's what we've been taught all of our lives. It's really fascinating to look at a high control religion that really has the same emotionally abusive dynamic as a difficult relationship, which is really what it is. It's not just two people, it's an entire organization and the people within the organization. So everybody in the system is responsible for the greater emotional well-being of the system.
Right.
So everybody loses their voice. Nobody has a voice.
Not men or women.
It comes out differently in men and women because they're trained for different roles.
Yep.
But in reality, neither have a voice. You know, women are the peacekeepers, need to make everybody's emotions okay. Men are given authority to talk, but there's no wisdom, knowledge, vulnerability behind that authority, which really makes it not a voice. It's just talking. It's like a talking head that can have control, but no real authentic voice. So nobody really has a voice in that situation. But men can feel like they do, but they really don't anymore. We don't really know what a voice is.
Right. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to say hi to a few people out there. Good morning, Lynn. Good morning, Rhonda. Good morning, Fran, Diane, Yvonne, Susie, Daryl, Joan, everybody. Welcome. Good morning. Susie says, my heroes. Thank you, Susie. You are our hero. I loved what you shared this week. It was so awesome and worthy. Okay, so let's get going because this is a lot to cover. But finding our voice, clearly I have found mine. But it doesn't mean, I just also wanted to start by saying, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that you be bold or wild or be as opinionated as I am. Okay, so I just want to start with that by saying I'm not recommending it. And it's a really hard road. It is not easy.
Yeah, you don't have to come out with your hair on fire. It's okay. Just having a voice, just being able to be your authentic self.
Yes, this is about each individual person becoming their own person. Yeah. And so that is really like no comparison. You know, we grew up with such comparison of that kind of stuff. So what we're really talking about today is the voice that has always really been in you. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about saying, before we came live, we were talking about women specifically not having any idea where they even want to go for dinner. And tell
Right.
me what you said, because I love what you said.
Yeah, I recognized that in my late wife after we came out of, and there was no ability to make any kind of decision. Like, where do you want to go for dinner? I don't know. I don't know. You pick, you know. And it was just trained. And she also had come from a really difficult marriage that kind of doubled down on that problem. But when I recognized it, I really didn't know anything about codependence. I didn't know anything about emotional intelligence, communication, but I did recognize that that didn't feel right. And so I just started asking her, I was like, well, is there anything you don't want for dinner? Do you want this type or this type? Or, I would ask easy questions she could say yes or no to.
Yeah.
And gradually she started learning to find her voice in choices. That's actually a great place to start. I
Yes.
mean, in some ways, it's almost like teaching a child choice. Do you want red or blue clothes today? Not what do you want to wear. You start with something simple that's digestible in an emotional capacity kind of way.
Yep. So I just want to be clear that that's kind of where we're starting. Good morning to a few more of you. Sam, Kimberly, glad you guys are here. Feel free to join into this conversation because this is going to be a good one. Well, they all are. But I just love every conversation we have, Steve. I can hardly wait to sit down and have another glass of wine with you, by the way. Okay,
Yeah,
so yes, so that's what codependence looks like inside of a high control religion that we came out of. And so I think I just want to also clarify that that happens within the church. So between the workers and people, even elders, like that's a codependent relationship because we feel responsible for the workers' emotions and safety and the whole life, and in marriage, we've already discussed that. But I think it also extends a lot of times in high control churches to children,
right.
where especially the mom feels responsible for the child's feelings and emotions and all of that. And now what has happened that I have witnessed, especially in Worthy, is that now the level of guilt for women about their children and about what they allowed for their children is really intense. And that is also, but that's all codependence. That's all them feeling like they are responsible for them forever. So let's debunk that just a little bit. So talk about how that happened to us. How did the culture of the church train us to literally just take it? Whatever it was, we just took it.
Yeah, it's really fascinating when you see a church that has no rules, but it's rampant. It's full of rules,
Yes.
but they're all hidden. They're all quiet. They're all subversive. And really, for generations, everybody's been trained from the top down. From the time you're a child, you're trained not, to sit still in meeting, to be quiet, to submit, to follow, peer pressure. The longer you're in generationally, it turns into peer pressure, and that's what keeps you obeying the rules. And I think with children and parents, it's something that it's easy to feel guilty about, but you really have to step back and realize you can't feel guilty about something you had no control over.
Right.
All you can do is move forward from here.
Yes. Totally agree. The other thing that I wanted to say about that is it totally just escaped me because somebody just sent me a private message. Sorry about that. It is specific, though, around all of the parenting relationships and men and women back and forth. Oh, man, it was a really good point. It'll come back to me. Let's keep going. Let's talk for a second about what the messages were specifically taught about having a voice. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Guess what? Cherie Kropp is going to be on June 3rd, talking specifically about the history of the rules for women. So I just want to put that out there for people because that's going to be a fun, fascinating show because that's what
It
we're
will.
talking about today. The rules that, you know what? They say there were no rules, but there were. And there was all kinds of systems in place that
Yeah.
disconnected us from our own voice. So let's talk specifically about women for a second.
And to say that again, our audio cut out a little bit.
Oh, talking specifically about women and how they find their voice.
Yeah, it's a you know women were taught to have emotional labor without any emotional authority, and it's tough to find a voice because high control religions, they really reward obedience more than authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So, approval replaces identity.
Mm-hmm.
All that matters is approval. So we suppress our personal truth. So being authentic, learning to have that voice, I think it starts in small ways, really little. Like we spoke about earlier about picking a restaurant,
Yeah.
just having a want, having a desire, having a need, and being able to voice it without feeling guilty.
Yes.
And it can start small. I want tea instead of coffee, but I always order coffee because it was just easier not to, it could be anything like that.
Tea is a little bit more work, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
Right.
and it's stopping and thinking a little bit about in that moment, what do I want?
Yeah.
And that was really never allowed. We were taught what's for the greater good. How can I appear more obedient, more, I don't know what the right word is, more holy by,
Yes.
by obedience.
Right.
That's all
And
that matters. How
what
we're
that
looking
has
at it.
done, exactly. So before we started this, I was telling you that we've had a retreat in Worthy the last couple of weeks, and what that has done, out of 30 women, out of almost 1,200 women that we've got in there, we just have a small group of us that are getting together right now. This last week was all about finding our voices, and the reality of the pressure cooker, that repression and just the pushing down and shoving down of your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your fears, your desires, your dreams,
Hmm.
all of it has created a pressure cooker of women that are just dying to be themselves. And I mean that in every way possible. And it is heartbreaking, truly,
Yeah,
truly heartbreaking. Sam is saying that our conditioning started when we got beaten meeting to behave.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Fran
you
says
train
that,
train obedience from the time you're an infant.
yes. Fran is saying that one elder always chose the restaurant every Sunday, and if we went out, never ever ask anyone else to pick. Glad I could say no, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it has happened to us from the very, very beginning. And so even like this next week, and that's what I have on my mind right now is just like starting out with what kind of style do you even like? Like we were forced as women to even wear denim, no sparkles were allowed, but that's partly why I wore
Wow.
sparkles today. It's just some of those little things that just slowly starting to implement those things into our lives. Like you said, the tiny steps of, oh, I think I might just add a little sparkle today, or I might just ditch the jean skirt and go for, I don't know, polyester, you know? But it's a choice. You would think that that's
Yeah,
a grown woman should not have that dilemma going on. But let me tell
yeah.
you, man, maybe
Sometimes
I'll
it's
wear
being
lipstick
able,
today. What's that?
yeah, it's like being able to lean into the uncomfortable.
Yes.
And if you're leaning into the uncomfortable, you're probably starting to find yourself.
Yep. Let's talk for a second about authenticity because that's where we're going to. We're going from codependence to authenticity, and you find your voice in that in between space. What is your definition of authenticity?
It's really just being able to speak your own truth. What's real, what's true, what's right for you, and understanding that it may not be right for somebody else, whether it's a spouse or friend or whoever. It's what's right for you. I mean, what's right for you isn't necessarily right for your husband. It's you have different wants, needs, desires. It's looking at what authentically or what really makes you feel right, what makes you feel good, and in a healthy way.
Yes. It is very, we've talked about this before, but how difficult it is, especially for women, to even start looking in the mirror and see themselves.
Yeah.
Just that simple thing is so hard in the beginning. So yes, women, I can clearly tell you, like that got me riled up this week of just because I care so deeply and I know how much work it takes.
Yeah.
But it's like I also had so much joy. Like I woke up Thursday morning after the retreat, or Friday morning, I guess it was. Yeah, very emotional, really teary, really emotional because so many women were vulnerable and speaking their voice for the first time. And we just went around the room one after the other. It was so powerful, Steve. And it was just so, for me, I just felt like I just love them so much and want them so badly to just know what they want in life, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, so many specific issues. So let's talk for about, I'm talking about women out, you run the men's group. Talk about what happens for men.
It's like I said, it's the complete opposite. You have authority, but you really don't have voice. Authority, you can make decisions, but you really don't have an authentic voice as a male. And from my own experience, don't really have emotional intelligence. That's something that when I left 24, almost 25 years ago, that I realized that there was just something really missing for me, and I didn't understand how to express emotion. So here we have women that are keepers of all emotion and have to bear the burden of everyone's emotions. I realized, partly from the church, partly from my own family upbringing, that I didn't have any language for it. I knew how to be happy, I knew how to be really angry, but really didn't know how to identify and express an emotion in between that. And with that also comes the inability to really communicate effectively. So you don't have authenticity as a male when you don't have the words, the language, the knowledge. And that's, I think, why we see a lot of men that, a lot of rage. There's a lot of emotion we have that is just not, we don't know what to do with it. And that was my own experience. You have this anger because you don't know what to do with, you can't identify and even name feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So how do but you have all the authority. There was a part of myself that felt a little bit like I was a fraud as an adult because I didn't understand those things. And yet I knew it was missing. I just didn't know how to find it at the time.
Yeah. Susie's saying, thank you. I've been second guessing myself for being so open. See, and I know that that's what happened. I'm kind of letting everybody sit in that a little bit because it was recorded and to be vulnerable. So for most of the women in the room this week, it was the first time in their life that they have been vulnerable and honest about who they are and what they want.
Yeah, because in the system we grew up with, vulnerability was punished.
Yes.
It was literally punished. You stepped out of line if you were vulnerable.
Yes.
And you would be let know. It could be a spouse, it could be a worker, it could be an elder, anybody. It could be a peer. You knew, and you were punished.
Right. And then the guilt of moving forward and the insecurity that comes with that, the lack of confidence, self-esteem. And that means that when you don't have those things, you have a hard time being decisive about anything in your life. Anything, career, and that affects your job. It affects so many areas of your life when you don't have self-esteem, when you don't come into it saying, I know how to make good decisions. I know how to manage money. I know how to go where I want to go and do what I want to do. None of that is
Right.
in the programming of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think something that can help with that is, we've talked about therapy a little bit. That's great, but there's also nothing wrong with taking classes.
Yes.
Whether it's financial literacy, a class on hair and makeup.
Yes.
It's anything we feel like where we've been missing, where we're lacking. Find a way to educate yourself on it.
Yes.
That's to me one of the best ways you can go about actually, building your self-confidence, rebuilding yourself really, because
Right.
in this high control religion there is no self.
No. I really so here's the problem. This is the reason that we're having these conversations and that we do it every month. The problem is, so people have left this high control church and they're so concerned with there's so many layers to it. But at the root of it all, Shanna and I talked about it 2 weeks ago about the purity culture. It is exactly what we're talking about today. It really is the essence of that level of self-esteem or lack thereof. And so it's all of a sudden, now what? Now
Yeah.
what? and where to
It's
even
like
begin.
it's like we're dropped into a giant vacuum.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
So
it's
that's why
scary.
these
I mean,
conversations
you
are
have to
so,
acknowledge how frightening and scary it is to be in that place.
yes. I remember.
Yeah,
I will never forget how freaking scared I was. Daryl's
yeah.
saying, reflected back on my experience within the church, I can't remember a single thing that built emotional intelligence. I will agree. But on the
Oh,
other
nothing.
hand, the messaging to defeat yourself was strong. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's been a happy
absolutely.
journey. Yeah, playing catch up. Um,
And
Rhonda's saying,
just it might be worth taking a step back and talking about emotional intelligence, what that
yeah,
really is.
let's
It's
go for
it's
it.
emotional intelligence is simply the ability to recognize, feel, and express your own emotions, which also allows you to understand and empathize with others' emotions.
Yes.
It's a fairly simple thing, but it's not easy to learn.
No,
It's a lot of work.
it is. It really takes, I think that the world in general, not just high control religions, we are definitely taught to be thinking about what we're going to say while the other person's speaking instead of actually listening.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
again, you said taking classes. I took a class when I was young and I was getting my associate's degree, I think at the time, about just the listening. It was called the listening contract, a full entire semester of just learning how to listen. And that was really the beginning of me learning that I needed to start listening for myself, to
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Like those thoughts that go in my head, and it was like the knowledge is there, the knowing is there. I am just so programmed not to listen to it, not to hear those nudges. And that is what leads to authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. And the hardest thing to do is starting to step into the vulnerability of speaking authentically
Yes.
because we are programmed to fear that.
Yes.
So how do we switch that? I think it couples can do it. Just sit down and have a conversation of agreeing to listen to each other. Just having more of a listening conversation where vulnerability can be expressed and received without any pushback, any challenge to it.
Yes.
But with just understanding and you know positive feedback about it. Sometimes that's not possible in couples, in relationships, and maybe then it's okay to find a friend,
Right.
or a therapist or anybody. But sometimes just being able to sit and talk with a friend and being vulnerable about things, it's a muscle,
Yeah.
and just being able to talk a little bit about it, it starts happening a little bit more and a little bit more
Right.
and a little bit more. But it's a really, really scary thing to start. But it's the first step of really finding yourself, finding your voice,
Hmm.
finding your independence.
Yes. So reflection back is one of the most powerful tools that you can give to someone when you are listening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give the example. Today, these women don't know it, but those of you that are watching, you're going to get an email from me or a message from me reflecting back on what I heard you individually say this week, because I want them to know not only like it's a reassurance. What it is it's clarifying for them to know. So this is how it goes. You say something to me, and then I say what I heard you say,
Right.
and you start with that, what I heard you say, and you say it back to them in a way that acknowledges to them, I listened, I heard, and if at that point there is any lack of clarity, that's where that can be. And then the other person can say,
Hmm.
that's not what I said, or that's not what I meant.
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it.
well,
You got it partly right, but here's a clarification.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And that really, just those tools of knowing how to even start to have that dialogue and to start to have the listening muscle, reflection is a huge piece of it to really. And I learned also to take some notes. Sometimes if it's a long, somebody just needs to just vent, I just write down some key words so that then I can reflect that back and say,
Hmm.
I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly,
Yeah.
and give them the opportunity to clarify without judgment.
Right. And what's so fascinating is many, many, I mean, a vast majority of conflict in relationships has to do with not being heard.
Yes.
And unless we're heard, the louder we get,
Yes.
or quieter. Some people withdraw. I mean, there's different
Yep.
ways that we handle it. But when you take that time and really listen and actually hear what that person says, it doesn't have to be our experience, that we don't have to necessarily agree with it. It just matters that we hear and understand how you're feeling.
Exactly.
I need to hear and understand how you are feeling about what you're trying to say. And it's amazing when we are heard, the whole charge of that emotion goes away.
It does. It
That's
just diffuses the whole thing.
Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
our greatest human desires is to be heard and acknowledged and seen.
Yes. Yes. I want to acknowledge Daryl right now. He's saying the giant vacuum. That's why I started journaling. It's a great way to discover and catalog needed aspects in life. I think that's very true. Journaling is true. And I also want to give Daryl credit really quickly also because sometimes if I post something or he sees something, even on my personal page, he'll take a screenshot of his whatever he's journaled and just send it to me as a, hey, have you thought about it this way? Or this is how I'm thinking about it. Without, there doesn't have to be a lot of words between us. It's just like, that's his way sometimes of saying, I hear you. Sometimes he sends me something and I say, I hear you back. Like, it's just but yes, I think journaling, again, thank you, Daryl, for adding that in. Especially if you're single, that's a great way to start getting those things out because that pressure cooker that's happening for us, it's what my therapist always would say, you're on a hamster wheel, Crystal. You're just on a freaking hamster wheel. And until you get off that hamster wheel, those thoughts just circle and circle and circle. And you can't make a decision. You can't move forward. You can't because you are stuck on that hamster wheel.
Yeah, and I think even sometimes in relationships and couples, journaling can be useful because a lot of times what we start the conversation with otherwise is the emotions, not the facts.
Yes.
And sometimes journaling can help us get past the emotion, which is our reaction, and get into a response.
Yes.
And then there's a better conversation to be had. So journaling can be really powerful in a lot of ways.
I agree. I also, for those of you who are starting to watch TV now, I just want to clarify, if you haven't watched Madison, it's by Tyler Sheridan. It's on Paramount. It's a new series that he just came out with, but it is about a guy that dies in a plane crash and his wife finds his journal in the place that he used to go for vacation every year. And she actually got to know the real man that she was in love with all those years through his journal. And so that would be a great place for people to start if you want to have a little bit of entertainment around starting this idea of starting to journal for yourself. But it really can work in a marriage, what you just said, of it's if you write it down rather than just spew it out sometimes, the other person can contemplate that, especially if they're not a trained listener.
Right.
It's easier for them to internalize that, think it through before then they respond, even in writing. That can be a great spot. And I always recommend that if there's a lot of conflict in any relationship, let's figure out if we're even on the same page first by writing down what our goal is. Like, what is the outcome that we're both wanting here? That's step one in mediation.
Yeah, and just a little aside of how important it is to learn how to have these difficult conversations. Any conversation can be easy or difficult. A lot of it depends on if you're reacting or responding. But there's a study that something like almost 70% of issues in couples are non-solvable because we are just that different as people.
Right.
And that doesn't mean they're a problem. It just means we need to learn how to talk about things that we're probably never going to agree on.
Yeah.
And we are different, male, female, different upbringings, even though we're in the same, most came from the same religion. There's still family dynamics and gender dynamics, and we are very different people.
Yes.
So most issues are really unsolvable.
Yeah.
The key to a good relationship is learning how to talk about them and understanding and hearing, not solving.
Right. And that's codependence, is the need to solve somebody else's problem. And what we're trying to get to here is healthy, because we're not responsible. I say this all the time. As adults, We are not responsible for one another. We are responsible to one another. And there is a really big difference in that dynamic. And when you start to understand that I'm responsible to you and not for you, then that really does shift the dynamic of that relationship. It takes you out of codependence and puts you into a healthy frame of mind, if that makes any
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to say we're responsible for the words we say and how we say them, but we're not responsible for how they're heard.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree. So we've already kind of covered this, but I want to talk for a second about how unsafe it feels for people to be vulnerable in the beginning. Like it's a muscle. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of training and learning, and then when they are vulnerable, then they're like what Susie's saying is like, oh no, I spoke. Uh-oh, now what? And the desire to run and hide in
Yeah.
under your covers and not come out.
I mean, it can almost feel like you're sticking your head in a guillotine just to be a little bit vulnerable about something. And
Yes.
that's why we go back to it's super important to, whether it's a spouse or a friend or whoever, it's like acknowledge that you're going to talk about being vulnerable, both of you, and that you're going to hold space for being vulnerable and just listen and not judge, not, push back, not get defensive, any of those, but just hear the vulnerability. And vulnerability doesn't need to be big, giant secrets. It's just, I have a little different desire about where we eat. That can be vulnerable. It's like, I don't really care for that place we keep going to. I'd really rather try something different. That can be a huge piece of vulnerability, just that little bit.
Yes. You are not kidding. That is absolutely true. And I think so one of the things that's really hard to get out of is the patterns. We have so many patterns in relationship, and this is why we've talked about this before. I've said this before. I encourage people who are married and have been married, especially coming in the system, maybe not be on video next week. Yes, Susie, I know that's what you're thinking, girlfriend, but you're gonna be because you're strong and you got it. Here's what I'm gonna say. The patterns of it, and this is why I encourage people. I have some people who come to me and say, I just feel like we need to get a divorce. I lead with, how about, since you've been married for 28 years or however long, that you just do your own work separately
Yeah.
so that you can identify the patterns that are unhealthy in your relationship, because it's all codependence, especially coming out of this church. Codependence. So instead of just divorcing and moving on with your life, not that I'm against that, I'm just saying it might be salvageable. It might be.
Look at the options of repair before we go to that step.
Yes. Yes. But it's learning tools. It's kind of like, especially women, once they find their voice, they're like, I'm done with you. I
Oh
am
yeah.
done. I don't want to deal with your shit anymore. And
I was on
so,
the receiving end of that for many years, and it was challenging for me as a male, and I
yeah,
had to do a lot of work around it.
let's talk about that. How do you do that? How do these men step up and say, I want a woman that has a voice. I want my wife to be my partner and be equal to me. I don't want to do this to her. I don't want to do this to my children. I want to model healthy communication and relationship to my children. Where do they even start?
Well, the first thing I would say is how rewarding it is. That's you got to keep the goal, the end goal in mind,
Yes.
because it is a really difficult path for men to give up needing to be right, to give up authority, uh, to give up knowing everything, whether you know or not. Whatever you need to give up, there's a lot to give up for men, and it's really you just have to start small again. Learning to apologize, I think, is a big one. Learning to be okay being wrong. I think myself, I was taught you had to be right. And if you have to be right, being wrong is just, it's the worst thing that could ever happen. So I think it's really healthy for men to just, we're not always right. We're wrong more often than we're right. And acknowledging the strength of our partners, our women, um, the intelligence they have, you know, I often said my wife was smarter and better and emotional, you know, almost anything than I was. And I think that's a great place to start is just start acknowledging the value, the strength, the everything that our partners or spouses have.
I will tell any man listening right now, if you can start to actually truly see your wife or woman or partner in a way that she feels seen and feels heard and feels that you are really truly seeing who she is, what she wants, what she needs, instead of just the
Assuming,
comfort zone of, yes,
yeah,
your
asking,
whole life will
ask her
change.
questions
Yes.
and actually listen to the answers. And it may take a while to get the right answers, the real answers, because there's a fear of vulnerability there.
Yes. So
If
another trick,
it's not a trick question. It's
it's not a trick question. So
yeah.
here's what I would offer a challenge to couples, because this is something that I learned in my listening contract class back when I was 19. And it has told me a lot about people over the years. A great place to start in relationship, if you're not used to being vulnerable with one another, is set a timer for 1 minute to just sit and look in one another's eyes. No
Mm.
words, no words. Sit for 1 minute until that timer goes off. It will be one of the longest minutes of your life.
It's it's a super vulnerable space
Oh,
because people see you then, and
uh-huh,
it is really uncomfortable. But boy, is it
uh-huh.
powerful. Yeah, yeah. It's a great exercise.
It is. And I'm here to tell you it's powerful. And if you can start doing that even on a regular basis, like even once a week on Sundays, we're going to set that timer for 1 minute and just look at one another. Your whole life will shift. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. It is that powerful. And it's the finding your balance in relationship, because that will level the playing field faster than anything,
It does.
which I love. So that unsafe, like that is a great place to start when people are feeling unsafe, like to just see whether or not you can trust that person in that
Mhm.
space of looking at each
I would challenge men to create a space of safety,
other. Ooh, I
of
like
emotional
that.
safety. I think that's one of the things I learned to do early on,
Tell us more
and
about
that
that.
was a game changer for us.
What does that look like?
Listening, really listening and hearing and feeding back the listening. So once she knew that what she said wouldn't get weaponized, it would be heard, it would be valued, then she was able to be more vulnerable. And I'm talking about my late wife. Um, it's muscle on both sides. But once you create a safe space, and really safe space is just a space where the other person can speak without any fear of retribution, reprisal, and anything. There's just listening and acceptance. That's all a safe space is.
I love that.
No defensiveness,
Right,
no justification, no pushing back, no like, well, but I meant, none of that.
right,
Just listening.
right. Talk for a second about boundaries in this, because this goes back to what I was saying earlier about couples who have been together for a long time and are trying to find their way, especially if one's in and one's out. This is also, you kind of have to, so putting some boundaries into the relationship. And that is the antithesis of codependence, which
Yeah.
we've all learned, that I'm so responsible for your feelings and your emotions that I cannot separate from you or have autonomy in any possible way. But the first step of that is having a boundary. Talk to us for a second about what that looks like.
Yeah, and boundaries again, just like vulnerability, are super scary because I remember even when I started creating boundaries, I felt like I was a really mean person. And that's often what comes up when you're a person that is not used to setting boundaries.
Yeah.
You can feel like you kind of be an ass about it. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Now I don't, but it's hard to do. And in communication, sometimes boundaries can even be, if you yell, you raise your voice, that's something that really bothers me. So if that happens, I'm just going to leave the room, go in the other room, and give us 20 minutes to cool off. That's a boundary, because that's something that an action I will take if you do a certain thing.
Right.
It's not like you're not allowed to yell. That's a rule. Well, I can't make a rule for you.
Right.
But I can make a boundary that I'm going to leave the room so we both have time to cool off.
Right.
So boundaries are really important, not just in communication, but everywhere. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we weren't allowed to have those either.
Right. And what you just said is a point that I love to talk about, which is that we train other people how to interact with us.
Yeah.
And when you say, well, it's when you yell, I can't hear you, or whatever it is, and you don't lay down the boundary, and you literally are but then when they yell, you just yell back, or you keep saying it without the boundary of, if you continue yelling, I'm leaving the room for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The only way to shift and have it's, you know what? Honestly, Steve, this is what we're talking about, even with the workers.
Yeah.
It's accountability. When we are so not used to accountability, we are so not used to holding the other person responsible. If that person's going to continue to yell, then you has to leave the room for 20 minutes. That is the accountability piece. They don't get access to you for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Set a
And it gives
timer
them
on your
time to
phone.
reflect and realize as well. And, coming from a system where everybody that's above you in the system has no accountability.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and that's what I say, like, I think that sometimes, like, even this week, like, I've been super vocal, and I'm not trying to just spew it, or I'm not bitter. I'm not trying to change their behavior, because I know their behavior is not going to change. But what I am trying to do is lay down some accountability. Like, you don't get to say and do these things without consequences.
Yeah. And, I think this plays well into, there's a lot of relatives that are still in.
Yes.
And there's conversations that happen. You and I have talked about this before, where if somebody that's still attending, often they come at us with whatever they're going to come at us with, but on the phone, through an email, whatever it is, it's okay to say, look, I love you. I like talking to you, but this is an area that I think is important right now. We don't discuss because we view it differently. And if you continue to bring that to me, I'm going to hang up the phone.
Right.
And we can try talking again another time.
Right.
And then follow through with it. And
Yes.
that's just training people how to relate to you, how to communicate with you, but it's in a respectful, boundary-driven way.
Yes. Very fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Because we
It's
want to
always
say,
what
you
you've
can't
always
talk
done.
to me like that. Stop talking about that. They can say whatever they want,
Yeah.
but we can have a boundary around it.
Yep. And that you just clarified that perfectly. Yeah. If you keep taking it, if you always do what you've always done, you're going to always get what you always got. It's that simple.
100%.
I mean, it's that simple. We have to learn tools to say that is this conversation is not okay.
Yeah.
You do
And
not
the boundaries need to be set, firmly, but also compassionately.
Yes.
It's not with anger. It's not with yelling. It's just, here's how I'm going to handle this situation.
Right. So the difference between the antithesis of codependence is interdependence.
Yes.
So I want to talk about modeling what that looks like. What does healthy interdependence look like?
That's a great question. Because the other piece is, if you go far to the other end, you're looking at independence. And if you go there, you really don't have much of a relationship.
Right.
You're going to be over there in the corner by yourself.
Right.
So interdependence is really about respecting each other's emotions, hearing each other's emotions. It's balance. I have emotions, I have feelings, I have opinions. I want to be able to express them to you. And likewise, I want to be able to hear yours and honor your emotions, expressions, and feelings. And it's about hearing each other, really, is what it goes back to. It's about space where both of you are able to be vulnerable and to be able
And
to say
authentic.
what's on your mind and have it be heard and respected. And the other thing is, it's difficult to, when you're stopping being responsible for someone else's emotions, to watch them go through having to manage their own. That's one of the hardest things, is you want to step in and fix it and fix it and fix it. because that's your training. That's what you know how to do. But they're responsible for theirs, and they've got to kind of stew in that themselves a little bit. And it can be done with love. It doesn't have to be a mean thing, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah, to not chuckle in the corner while they're spinning out is like, that's
No,
disrespectful.
no,
But
I see you're struggling with that. I'm sorry, and I understand that's yours to work through.
yes,
I'm here for you, but I do get that that's, you're needing to work through that.
yes. I want to
I
be
got told that
very,
a lot of times.
yes. Well, I do want to be very clear about what you said earlier about what the reward is, because I want to just be very clear. When you can learn about interdependence and true partnership and true connection, it leads to intimacy, it leads to building trust, it leads to so much higher communication, being on the same page, dreams and goals coming true for people because
Yes.
you're starting to work together. Like, there are so many rewards to
You
getting
end up with
out
a
of the negative pattern.
much deeper, more fulfilling relationship, which
Yes.
is what intimacy is.
Yes,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's a real partnership.
it truly is. Yeah. And it does take two willing partners, but here's what I'm going to also say. When you somebody and 9 times out of 10, I think in my experience, somebody's got to lead that. Very
Hmm.
rarely do they both come to the same point and say, okay, let's do this together. Usually it's one person or the other saying, I'm putting down a boundary and I will no longer tolerate this programming. I will no longer tolerate the way we communicate. I will no longer tolerate the way you treat me. I will no longer tolerate living in a way that has nothing to do with what I need or want and everything to do with what you need and want. Like, okay, one person almost always is the first person to lead that and lay down the boundary. If
Yeah,
that is you, anybody listening, you have to have a couple tips and tricks on what that means.
it's hard.
It's hard. You got to do it with love and compassion, which is what you just said. I just wanted to reiterate that doing it with love and compassion and letting them, like when you walk out of the room for 20 minutes and they lose their access to you, that is a total game changer.
It is.
They don't
And
like
again,
that.
it's not done in a punishing way. It's just like
No.
I need the safe space.
But you have to decide that it's worth it, that the
Yeah.
goal that you want for that relationship is interdependence, not independence, interdependence
Yes.
of connection and intimacy and building trust back, especially if trust has been broken in relationships. It's, and a lot of it is, I will say, a lot of women coming out of high control religion don't have a lot of respect for the man that has told them what to do all their life.
Hmm. Because what he's telling them doesn't come from a place of authenticity.
Exactly. So I want men to understand that. And I also want men to know, like I started out this conversation, I want there to be hope. I want men to know, yes, you can earn that respect. You can build that trust. You can learn how to see your spouse, wife, differently in a way that she feels seen and heard, and that you are authentically deserving of her respect.
Yeah, it's earned.
Yeah.
And it, back to somebody starting the process, we found over time that she started it originally because I just had no capability and she did. So she did, but there were times when I would take the lead on the next step and then she would and then I would. It's just because you don't grow and learn at the same pace. We were growing together, but there was times I would have breakthroughs and I would lead and she would have breakthroughs and she would lead. But it was something that we truly worked on together because we both had a lot to learn.
And most of us do. And I just want to say to anybody out there, like, Steve and I did not wake up this way. We did
It's hard work.
years, hard work, lots of hard work,
Yeah.
lots of years of studying, and still to this day. It's still our practices. I now have an awareness, like when I'm just tired and I'm over it for some other reason, it's the easiest person in the world to be like, snap.
Yeah.
Like, you do not get my attention right this second. Like, I have 900 million other things in my brain. And then I'm like, ooh, that was not nice. Like, it almost is instant now. I'm like, I apologize. That was rude, and what I have going on has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that even though we do a lot of learning, you and I have come a long ways. That early childhood training, that generations of stuff, it never goes away.
No.
Those things still trigger you. They still come up.
Yes.
But the difference is they're a lot softer. You
Yes.
have tools to be able to respond to it instead of react to it
Yes.
emotionally. And they're not a big deal. They happen, you clean them up, and they
Right.
are going to happen. They're never going to stop. But
Right.
all of a sudden you realize they're just a little blip on the radar. They're a 10-minute conversation and it's
Yes.
cleaned up. It's not a 3-day Cold War.
Exactly. My husband and I have a sign hanging over our bed, and it says, "The perfect marriage is two people who decided we were not going to give up on each other." And it's that. It's because we have acknowledged coming into our relationship. We got into it in our 50s, late 40s, early
Yeah.
50s. It's like we had years and years of baggage, both of us. His
Yeah.
wife had passed away. Like we both are coming at this like not as perfect people. No, and that's the other thing. No one is. So the
No.
sooner you really stop and realize like, but what we both want is connection and intimacy and trust and laughter and joy and all the things.
Yeah, because I think something really interesting is, when we get married, we usually find somebody that we align with in values,
Yeah.
and that which is really important. But then as life goes along, you realize you're really completely opposite. And
Yes.
that's what keeps it interesting, but it's also what creates conflict.
Yes.
And it's finding the tools to learn how to manage those and find the interdependence and
Yes.
learn how to balance each other and bring out the best of each other instead of the worst of each other. That's really,
Yes.
I think, the simple goal of it.
And giving one another freedom to pursue their dreams and
Yes.
what they like, who they really are. Like my husband loves to coach. It takes a lot of time. But I love doing this two by two stuff. I some days I don't love it. I take that back.
There are days.
Some
It
days
takes
I
a lot out of
don't
you.
love it. But
Yeah.
I'm committed to it and I'm not going to stop doing it. But that's a huge commitment. Huge commitment that he has to. So allowing him to go do his softball stuff. So I try to work my schedule around when I know he's going to be gone. Like just work it out. You just got to
Yeah.
communicate though. You got to
And
communicate.
support each other instead of shame or disparage or put
Yes.
down the thing they
Yes.
like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that often.
Yeah, I
It
don't like
becomes
softball,
it
but
becomes a weapon instead of a support. And how
totally.
vulnerable is that person going to be?
Yes. Totally, totally agree. Do you guys have questions out there that you want to ask us? Because otherwise, we're going to keep going on here. We've been talking a lot about what healing looks like over time. And I think it's right. That pendulum just kind of goes like this. And you have said before, and I want to repeat it because I think it's so important. If you're in a relationship and you don't have any conflict, you're not in a relationship.
No, you're just conflict avoidant.
That. That means one or the other of you has not found your voice. So I just want to repeat that little nugget because it's so true about any relationship, really. I don't, even sisters, friendship, whatever it is, relationship. If there is zero conflict, you're probably not growing together, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense at all.
Yeah, and I would say for men, having authority and ability to speak is not really having a voice. That's just having authority. A voice really comes from emotional intelligence.
Right. And I think that it's kind of like back to what we were just talking about the workers, that authority that like they call it spiritual authority, but it's self-declared. Like it's what is the root and where does that authority come from? Like
Right.
maybe that's a conversation you and I can have next is about where authority comes in relationship. Because if it's not authentic and it isn't earned and it's not real and it does not have the other person's best intentions at play,
Yeah.
it is selfish. I mean, we're talking about the root of the high control 2x2 problem of what they think authority looks like that has zero accountability.
I think I would say authority doesn't really have any place in a relationship.
Agreed. Again,
Partnership,
I'm not
yeah.
responsible for you. I'm responsible to you in any adult relationship.
Yep.
And to bring to the table, and I say that out loud to people all the time. If you're my friend or you know me, you've heard it come out my mouth, because I don't. That's the only way I have the energy to do what I do. I can't take on all of this.
Mhm.
It's your work. It's what you have to do. I can help you. I can reflect back to you. I can bring you tools. I can bring you knowledge, but I can't do it for you.
Yeah.
That is healthy. That is called interdependence. That is
Yep.
a normal, healthy, back and forth, any kind of relationship, friendship, marriage, anything.
Yeah, I think the way to look at interdependence is just think of balance.
Yes.
Both people have a voice. Both people feel safe. Both people can be vulnerable. Both people can
Yes.
have desires, opinions, thoughts that they can share with each other without retribution.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So we only have 5 minutes left, and I don't know where the time goes because, bam, it's over.
Feels
But
like we
I
just
do
got
want to
started.
end. I want to have that conversation. We kind of talked about it earlier about the guilty. What tips and tricks can you give to somebody who's feeling guilty because they want to have their own voice, because things are percolating and they're like, I would love to go to Mexican instead of McDonald's today.
Right? I think the thing to start with is when you're finding your voice, it's kind of terrifying. And it can often feel like you're wrong, which brings up guilt. And I would say if you're feeling that, that's probably what you want to lean into. A lot of times for healing, a lot of it is understanding what's causing it. So if you're feeling that guilt, you're feeling afraid, you're feeling wrong, you're probably in the right place. And understand that that's you pushing through your lack of a voice into having a voice, and that's probably right. You're probably right where you need to be, and you probably need to push into that and say the thing and feel the thing and think the
Yes.
thing. That's yeah. You've been so programmed to not have any of that. And
Yes.
yeah, you're absolutely going to be afraid of it. You're going to be
Yes.
guilty. You're going to be wrong, but that's where you want to push.
And that's where all these women who found their voice this week and literally said it out loud, I have been letting them hide under their covers for a few days because that's a normal response
Yep.
in any relationship. And this is in friendship and in a group of women where we used to, be catty with one another. But now it's like we're building authenticity and we're building true connection.
Hmm.
And what that looks like is that. So now it's time to reflect back and to move forward so that by the time we get to next week, they can actually be on video. So everything we're talking about today, Steve, it applies to men and women's relationships, friendships,
Yep.
work relationships. I mean, every area of our life has everything to do with how we come at it and how we approach other people.
It really does. When you start with your own relationship, everything else in life follows right along.
Yes. It and authenticity is the only way to navigate all of that. I think that especially coming out of high control churches, we were so good at being duplicitous, and so we had these little boxes and we put things into these boxes, and it was like, this is our work life, this is our home life, this is our church life, this is our whatever that we had. Becoming an authentic person means that all of that comes together in a way that everything connects. You're honest about all of it. You're not living two separate lives, and God forbid they ever collide. You're literally finding a way when you find your voice to say, this is what I need and want. This is who I am. This is how I show up in the world. And yeah, there you go.
And don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah. Okay, we're at time. So last word goes to you, my friend.
I think I would just say with all this is it's okay to be afraid.
Yes.
It's okay to have those feelings, and it's also okay to make mistakes. You can push into yourself, into vulnerability, into authenticity, and it's okay to make mistakes. And you can back up and try another route. Make mistakes. They're actually how you learn.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of them.
I love
push
that.
into them. Just there's no other way to find out who you are.
Fear, I think, honestly, is the biggest lie
Yeah.
to becoming who you truly are.
Yep.
What will so and so think? Yeah.
Fear of
Pushing
judgment.
through that fear. What's that?
Fear of judgment.
Fear of judgment.
We were very well trained.
Yes.
What will they think? How will I look?
Yes.
Who
Yeah.
cares?
Who cares? Yeah. I think just learning that. Okay, with that, we are going to let this go. Thank you, everyone. Everybody's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to say thank you, Steve, for being here and the work that you do to get ready for these every time. I know it just comes naturally to you also, though, because it's just who you are. But I love, love, love our connection and the way that I love your heart and what you're bringing to the table here. I feel like that these are life skills that truly, truly can be life changing for people. So, thank you, everybody. Have an amazing day. Don't forget this afternoon, for those of you who are interested, Jared will be doing on Zoom. It will not be recorded. The listening prayer. That is Jared Lerwick's thing. So he'll be running that. I will not be a part of that. Well, I will run his technology, but I won't. It's going to be all him. And then, so then this next Wednesday is Bryce Erickson again, continuing the conversation because we didn't get to it last week. Next Sunday is Pam Walton, who keeps all the lists, your cousin, and Jason, who is doing the mapping from all of that. So the combination of those two, we're going to turn up some heat on some people next week. So for those of you who are in the ministry, you might want to be paying attention. We're coming for you. And then the week after that, that next Wednesday is Natalie Boland. Dr. Natalie Boland will be on talking about pathways to healing. The following Sunday is going to be Mel Boyd, who is a great guy, older guy who has a lot of experience. And then Cherie Kropp will be on the week after that talking about the rules for women. So lots coming up, lots to get excited about. Thank you again, Steve. Have an amazing day. And I will talk with you soon. Have fun, everybody.